Thanks for coming. I'll answer any questions for you.
Second row right here, Ben.
Urban, you made comments in Florida last week about potentially taking spring practice down there. I was just wondering if you could expand on that. What would the benefits of
No,
that?
I didn't make comments. Someone asked me a question. Would we look into? We're looking into everything. I can't see taking spring break away from players, but that doesn't mean we're researching, keep an eye on. So it's funny how now we're going to get. Someone said, "Boy, I saw in the paper you guys are going to Florida." I said, "What are you talking about?" No, someone stuck a microphone in my face and said, "I said, yeah, we look into everything, but we wouldn't take their free time from them. If there's some way to do something like that and it helps the players, we look into it." But I'm glad you asked that because people were saying, "Yeah, so we're going to Florida next year." When
We were real interested because we thought we might be headed to Florida.
We're hoping it was true.
you go to Florida,
Austin.
Tom Herman was talking recently about how you guys stay in contact, and now he's dealing with a little bit more expectations and hype for his team. Did he reach out to you for any advice on handling that this spring at all?
well, we talk quite often, and he did. It came up in our conversation that, and it's the adage that I've heard Belichick and other great coaches say that people wake up on third base but they never hit the triple, and it's a pretty good, clear way of thinking that he's got guys walking in their program, guys are going to play it for him that had really nothing to do with nothing, and they're walking around campus getting patted on the back and, "Boy, you guys beat Florida State," and they're, "Yeah," but they had nothing to do with it. So that happens when you have success. So, and he knows he's a smart guy, but I always enjoy talking to Tom because I think he's done obviously a great job.
Last year, you guys dealt with a lot of that with so much expectations coming off the title. Is there, maybe it's too early, I don't know, is there a different mindset and mentality for this team, even though expectations are always so high for your program?
I was about to say we have low expectations now.
Not good. I was not going to say that.
It's what I don't know if we don't talk much about that. We talk about there's some guys that haven't done a whole lot that are going to play, and so we just put as much pressure on them now. It's not fair to put pressure on them in October, and so I hope there's more pressure on them in a first padded practice than there is next fall in front of 110,000. That's our job, to make it a very stressful and find out who can, because there's a lot of great athletes that don't respond to stress very well, who don't respond to difficult situations. And then there's others that maybe are a little bit lesser athlete that, to the JT Barrett of the world, and that's a perfect example. He's only an inch too short, he's this, but I'll tell you one thing, on double overtime at Penn State, we saw what we saw. So that we try to create that here more than worrying about expectations and figuring out who's going to play.
Third row left, Tim.
Urban, what has the process been like for Marcus Baugh from where he was as a freshman to where he is now?
It's very good. Tim Hinton and now Coach Warner have done I can't, and we're not out of the woods, but you're talking about a guy that was, ready to be sent home. And he's doing well in school. He's going to hopefully graduate here, I think, shortly. And that's a credit to his family and really a credit to him. But that's, those stories, well, make an example out of a kid, get rid of him. That's not going to happen here.
When he was a freshman and going through that time when he was leaving the program, did you envision that he would end up at this point as the veteran tight end on the team?
I guess with players, I'm usually the guy that's half full guy instead of half empty. I mean, we wouldn't recruit him if we didn't think he could be a heck of a player here. But the social issues and other issues that people deal with when they move away from home and typical 18, 19-year-old garbage, if we can get them through that, then a lot of times they develop.
Second row left, Ari.
Urban, I know that you've mentioned in the past that you have some trepidation about how quickly the recruiting process has progressed in terms of how early you have to get in on guys. I've noticed that there's kind of been a trend where you guys and other programs have accepted commitments from out-of-state prospects who have yet to visit. I was wondering what that is like for you in terms of, taking those commitments, and then when they finally come, how the vibe of their visit might be different because they've pledged, but they haven't been here yet.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I don't know the answer to that other than, it's hard to say no to a great player, but we also understand there's the chance of everybody sticking, And my wife says it best, say we got a commitment. She goes, "Oh, big deal. Let's see when they sign." I look, come on. But that's true. And the good thing is when they come visit, it's usually probably better than they even expected. So, but I've never, it's just getting faster and faster and faster. I think we've had a couple commit that weren't even here. But they're good players.
How far did you think, I know it's all about keeping up with everybody else and making sure you guys don't get left behind, but did you ever envision yourself looking at a middle schooler?
Middle school, like 6th, 7th graders and all that.
If you're offering 19 kids, that's one more year in your middle school.
Wow. I'm not offering 19-year-old or 9th graders, maybe our staff is, but I guess we do get involved in that nonsense. Good question, but we all know that's all silly stuff.
Back row left, Matt.
It's kind of an obvious question, but when you have as much turnover in terms of new starters and stuff on offense that you have this year, just how important is it having JT back, and how important is he not only on the field, off the field this spring and throughout?
Invaluable, and I'd put Pat Elflein in that same category. If you had trying to break in a new quarterback, a new center, you're probably not. You have no shot. But the fact that you have some stability, and you think of when we did have some injuries in 14, like our quarterback spot, to throw JT in there with, if they had a new center, new offensive line, all that wouldn't have been fair. But the fact that those two guys are back, we have a shot, and I think we have a decent shot to be good on offense. And in lots, not a lot. It's really mostly to do with those two guys coming back.
Also, just how did they come back today after a week off for spring break?
Good. We ran them pretty good yesterday to, make sure but they were good today.
Front row left, Blake.
When you compare this spring to the 2014 spring in terms of what you need to see in terms of development and young guys sort of seizing the opportunity, through this point, just a couple practices in, have those parallels continued? Do you still see it as?
Yeah, it's too early to tell. I did use examples, which I do quite often from, it was ridiculous when I started writing it down. You got Curtis Grant, Stevie Miller, Von Bell, Tyvis Powell, Eli Apple, Darren Lee, all these new names that never played it down for us, really. And then on offense, you had Mike Thomas, Zeke Elliott, and all these players that became very good players for us. So I hope it happens.
Back row middle, Jared.
Urban, we talked to you briefly after Pro Day, but in the weeks since Pro Day and the time since then, is there a player or two in that group that went through Pro Day who you've been asked about maybe the most from scouts? Just curiosity, things they want your insight on, the guy that they particularly liked about him.
Yeah, I think the two wild cards are Cardell and Braxton. They're the ones that don't have enough tape. We get asked about quite a bit. Very proud when most of them came in after and said not only are they tremendous players, but their interviews are over the top. Their knowledge of football, their understanding of fundamentals, and that's a credit to our assistant coaches and Coach Marotti. It made you feel good. I left here, last Friday, feeling great when some good friends of mine said, wow, those guys. And when Troy Vincent came out and when he spoke to the team, he said Ohio State players are ready for the NFL, and that means. And the success rate's been really good, so we just got to keep that going.
Front row left, Doug.
Urban, obviously with Zeke the last couple of years, you guys had a great tailback to hand the ball to. Maybe not handing the ball to the H-backs quite as much as maybe you have at other times in your career. With the less established tailback this coming season, would you like to get the H's more involved in the running game?
Dontre and Curtis Curtis is not practicing. Dontre has that sore foot still, but he'll be full speed next week. They're going through tailback drills. I don't know if you saw today because Dontre wasn't full speed and Curtis not going, but absolutely. You'll see Curtis and Dontre carry the ball. Very good that, like when we had Carlos Hyde and then Zeke Elliott at Florida, I didn't have those two guys. We had to create running with some other guys, and so I think a little bit more of that this year.
And I'm trying to figure out a way to ask this. I want to phrase it the right way. The women's basketball team is in the Sweet 16, and they pressure team. They press on defense. They attack on offense right away. When their coach was talking about it the other day, it maybe reminded me a little bit of what you guys do when you spread the field offensively in the spread, then you get up tempo. On defense, you went to the press coverage. You want it. Just the idea of putting pressure on your opponent in any sport. I know that's kind of what everybody does. Could you just speak about that when you really take it to the other team on both sides of the
Well,
ball?
there's risk reward to all that. It's very simple to say we're going to go. I think that's a great question, and that's a fundamental. You can't just say we're going to do that. And I certainly can't act like I know about basketball, but I get your question, and I think that's because teams have tried it. I'm sure there's some teams, let's go attack in basketball, and then they just get their tails kicked in because they're not ready for it. There's teams, if you put two bad corners out there and want to play four press, watch what happens. And so it's got to make sure it's not just an idea. It's got to be a program-wide philosophy. And that's a very good question. But that's when I first came here, this is what we want to be. Were we able to do that in 2012? Not at all, because it just wasn't built for that yet. It takes a little time, and recruiting those type of players, and then having a strength coach that's also, when we say 4 to 6, A to B, that's the same way we train in the weight room. It's a program philosophy, not a play. I think that's a really interesting story if you did something on that, about the different sports. But our women's basketball coach is not the first person who said we're going to go out and be aggressive. You know, everybody wants, I imagine most people want to do that.
And last questions, Tim?
Irvin, if you took the field, it looked like Demetrius Knox was at right guard today, Isaiah Prince at right tackle. What did you see from the offensive line as full
Yeah, Evan Lyle was sick today. He'll be back. He's battling for that spot. You know, Isaiah Prince, you know, he's got to perform like a first stringer. He's got all the ability in the world, and he tries hard. He's just not where he needs to be. So my initial reaction, a little disappointed with the offensive line today, but I'll know more after watching it. But not where we need to be. Certainly talented enough, but the right guard's not solidified yet.
JT, you were asked about JT Walker. What does having that returning starting quarterback, specifically the returning starting quarterback, and a guy that's been your starter, but he's never been the guy in the spring, you know, because of different reasons and stuff. What is the benefit of having that fellow be the leader out there in the spring?
Well, also the leader in the weight room in the offseason. That's why we named him captain immediately after the season, because his value is so much more than running and throwing. His value is he's one of the best leaders we've ever had. And so, once again, to double up on his question earlier, is that it's probably unfair to say we have no shot, but you're replacing that position and center. It's fair to say no shot, at least the first 4 or 5 games.
Are you liking what you're seeing from Jill Burrow?
Yeah.
And what does that mean when you say that? What do you mean? I mean,
Well, we scrimmage on Saturday, and I'm anxious to see him perform. His release is much better than it was. His arm strength's still not up to par, but he's, you know, as you would expect, a kid like that who really cares and really tries. Noticeable improvement.
And you came up last night. You came up to us the other day at the pro day, and you named a couple of guys: Austin Mack, Riante Dunn, Jamarco Jones. Was there somebody out there today that just caught your eye? I mean, that you're
yeah, Malik Hooker I thought was really good today. Denzel Ward I feel good about. We have 3 corners that our coaches feel very good about, and that's Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward, and obviously Garyon. So, and that was, Marshawn's got to stay healthy because he is so talented.
Coach, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,